Grand Prince Ivan III organized the reconstruction of the Kremlin, inviting a number of skilled architects from Renaissance Italy, including Pietro Antonio Solari, who designed the new Kremlin wall and its towers, and Marco Ruffo, who designed the new palace for the prince. It was during his reign that three extant cathedrals of the Kremlin, the Deposition Church, and the Palace of Facets were constructed. The highest building of the city in Muscovite Russia was the Ivan the Great Bell Tower, built in 1505–1508 and augmented to its present height in 1600. The Kremlin walls as they now appear were built between 1485 and 1495. 7. Spassky gates of the wall still bear a dedication in Latin praising Pietro Antonio Solari for the design. After construction of the new Kremlin walls and churches was complete, the monarch decreed that no structures should be built in the immediate vicinity of the citadel. The Kremlin was separated from the walled merchant town Kitai Gorod by a 30-meter-wide moat, over which St. Basil's Cathedral was constructed during the reign of Ivan the Terrible. The same Tsar also renovated some of his grandfather's palaces, added a new palace and cathedral for his sons, and endowed the Trinity Metochin inside the Kremlin. The Metochin was administrated by the Trinity Monastery and contained the graceful tower church of St. Sergius, which was described by foreigners as one of the finest in the country. During the time of troubles, the Kremlin was held by the Polish forces for 2 years, between the 21st of September 1610 and the 26th of October 1612. The Kremlin's liberation by the volunteer army of Prince Dmitry Pozarsky and Kuzma Minin from Nizhny Novgorod paved the way for the election of Mikhail Romanov as the new Tsar. During his reign and that of his son Alexis and grandson Fyodor, the 11-domed Upper Savior Cathedral, Armorial Gate, Tarim Palace, Amusement Palace and the Palace of Patriarch Nikon were built. Following the death of Alexis's son, Fyodor, and the Moscow Uprising of 1682, Tsar Peter escaped with much difficulty from the Kremlin and as a result developed a dislike for it. 3 decades later in 1703, Peter abandoned the residence of his forefathers for his new capital, the Golden Hall, a throne room with murals painted probably after 1547, was destroyed to make place for the Kremlin Palace, commissioned by Elizabeth of Russia and designed by the Italian architect Francesco Bartolomeo Rastrelli in 1752. The Kremlin in 1910. Many of the buildings were later destroyed by the Soviet government, especially those of religious importance. Although still used for coronation ceremonies, the Kremlin was abandoned and neglected until 1773, when Catherine the Great engaged Vasily Bajanov to build her new residence there. Bajanov produced a bombastic neoclassical design on a heroic scale, which involved the demolition of several churches and palaces, as well as a portion of the Kremlin wall. After the preparations were over, construction was delayed due to lack of funds. Several years later the architect Matvey Kazakov supervised the reconstruction of the dismantled sections of the wall and of some structures of the Chudov Monastery and built the spacious and luxurious offices of the Senate, since adapted for use as the principal workplace of the President of Russia. During the imperial period, from the early 18th and until the late 19th century, the Kremlin walls were traditionally painted white, in accordance with fashion. 9.